This is a sequel to Book 62. I can't remember that book. It was like 5 years ago when I read it.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
This book was written by Nola Thacker. Abby needs extra credit in history class, so she agrees to do a special project for Black History Month. The problem is that she has no idea what her project will be about. The teacher has a list of available topics. Abby could use one of them. But no, Abby decides she'll start the project now and think of a topic later. If that's how she normally does schoolwork, it's no surprise she needs extra credit. Our plot kid today is Lou McNally. Lou used to misbehave when she was living with a foster family. Now she's living with her aunt, uncle, and older brother Jay. Jay is 11, so it's a good thing they didn't pick Mallory to be his babysitter. That would have been awkward. Lou is very nice. She's polite and quick to apologize. The problem is that she gets very upset whenever things go wrong. Like water spills on the floor, or she gets jam on her shirt. Lou flies into a panic. But why?
When she accidentally dropped a box, she almost burst into tears. Her eyes were huge in her thin face. "I didn't mean it," she said with a gasp. "You won't tell?"
Lou's reactions are even more extreme when her aunt and uncle are around. It's clear that she's terrified of them. When I read this book, I worried that Lou was a victim of child abuse. There is a child abuse subplot, but it's not with Lou. It's with Mr. Nichols, who appears in the next book. He yells at his children, and they act just like Lou does. If anything, Lou is even more terrified of her guardian than the two abused children are. So it's not an exaggeration to say Lou acts like an abused child. Combining the child abuse story with Lou's story was a mistake, in my opinion. Even if the two storylines were properly separated and differentiated, I'd still advise against having 15% of this book be set up for the next book. That's on the borderline between good foreshadowing and using foreshadowing as filler. Abby gathers a group of kids for her Black History project. The kids give her ideas on what to do. Abby likes the idea of doing something with the Underground Railroad tunnel in Mary Ann's house. Beyond that, Abby has no idea what to do. So she takes the kids to research at the library. But there's no topic. How can the kids research the topic when they don't know what it is? Abby and Christy meet with the kids to discuss the project. Abby is put off by the fact that Christy doesn't assume control. Normally, Christy would take charge and offer suggestions at every opportunity. It sounds like Abby was expecting Christy to take over the project and do all the work for her. Afterwards, Abby floats some ideas by the Babysitters Club. They're too nice to say Abby only has lazy, obvious ideas, but they point out the Historical Society probably tackled all of her topics decades ago. In the subplot, the Addisons are moving away. Claudia is sad to see Corey go. They do one last art project together, a mural of the town. Corey's brother Sean yells and insults the babysitters constantly. He's been having mandated therapy sessions after setting the library on fire, but they don't appear to be working. Mary Ann feels bad for Sean and tries to think of a way to convince him that not everyone in town hates him. Abby has another kid meeting, and she goes to the Historical Society. That's when she finally decides what her project will be. They're going to film a documentary-style news report about an escaped slave. This is page 84. That's how long it takes before the book figures out what the main story is. Great job, Abby. Abby talks with Jay. He explains that Lou acts nicely all the time because she's scared that if she makes a mistake, she'll be sent away to a new family. I don't want to say Abby ignores this information, but she kind of waits until the end of the book before doing anything about it. Lou tries to help Abby with the project. In her eagerness, Lou sometimes makes things worse by accident. Lou's mistakes and constant apologies start to grate on Abby. She gets mad and orders Lou to lighten up. Lou turns into a big prankster, and she causes all sorts of havoc. Abby worries she's created a monster. Luckily, Lou goes back to being Little Miss Perfect in the next chapter. Marianne and the other babysitters visit Sean. They pretend he's a king and he bosses them around for an hour. He loves it, but when the hour is over, he goes back to yelling at them and accusing them of hating him. Sean, yelling at someone is not going to make them like you more. When Lou drops a plate, she bursts into tears. Jay comforts her, and Lou's aunt explains they love Lou, and they will never send her away, no matter what happens. It was actually kind of a sweet chapter. Abby's project is a huge success, as is Sean's going away party. Abby realizes friends are the most important thing. And she knows she's no longer the new kid in town. She belongs here now. Sorry, Abby. I don't think it matters how many times you say you belong in the Babysitters Club. Everyone is still going to think of you as Dawn's replacement. The end. Post-book follow-up. I thought this book was pretty bad. It takes Abby way too long to realize what her project will be about. It's almost like the author couldn't figure out what to write for this book, so they wrote a book about indecision. Also kind of feels like the author was rushing to a deadline. I thought there were two underdeveloped storylines, namely Lou accidentally messing things up by being too helpful, and Lou reverting back to a bad kid for one chapter. Those stories needed more attention. I would have liked seeing Lou go back between nice girl and mean girl. That could have been the main story. Instead of, I don't know what the main story is. Oh, gee. So I would delete 2 of the Abby Can't Pick a Project chapters in favor of giving both those Lou subplots a second chapter. I'd also delete the 2 foreshadowing chapters for the same purpose. This should have been a Christie book, because she narrated the first Lou book. Christie and Lou have a connection. It doesn't make sense for Abby to tell this story when she's never met Lou before. The basic premise of this book is reused from book 82. That is, a girl from an earlier book returns. Everyone's surprised when her personality is almost the opposite of what it was before. Overall, this is a bad book. It's pretty boring, seeing Abby spend over half the book wondering what to do. The ideas with Lou needed more development, especially the idea that she acts like an abused child. I'd say at least a third of the book needs to be rewritten in order to improve things. I was going to give this book a 1, but it's not as bad as Abby's last book. That book was bad. This one is just rushed and boring bad. I give Babysitter's Club number 116, Abby and the Best Kid Ever, a 2 out of 10.